Pastor Bill, when you were transferred by IBM from Columbia to Augusta, how did they help your walk?
I never would have expected IBM as a corporation to encourage me to be involved in a church. I had grown up in church all my life, had not been attending church since I was in college and got married and those kind of things. But when we moved here, they asked that I join a civic club and join a church to be seen as stable in the communities, a leader in the community that people could look up to. And so we came to town. We found the church nearest to us, which happened to be a Baptist church. And the fact of the matter is, attending there regularly, because at times my boss would say, bring in a bulletin, let me make sure you're going to church. I want to make sure you're being faithful in the community. And serving, they would ask you to serve. So they really did contribute in that way. I was exposed to the gospel and became a child of God as a result of my instruction to go be a part of a church for business purposes. I did the typical Baptist thing, and I made my declaration of surrender to ministry on a given Sunday morning, and a coworker happened to be in the service that day. Before I could get to work that next Monday morning, he had told everybody in the office I was leaving. And by the time my boss came in that morning, he made a few phone calls and called me into his office, and he said, I understand you're making a career change. And I said, well, eventually. And he said, well, you have till the end of the week to clear out your desk. You're finished with IBM. And so I really was stressed to the max. I went home and told my wife, and we both were just really uncomfortable with the prospect of being out of work. I broke out in shingles and was suffering greatly with shingles. And in that process, really cried out to God. And I just said, I'm doing my best to follow you. And it seemed like you are hindering me as I try to follow. It doesn't make any sense. And I guess, expected that he was going to just kind of snap his fingers and the shingles be gone and my job be secure, which didn't happen. But 1 week at a time, all the way to the end of December, I was able to keep my job until they found my replacement. So he did provide, and the shingles did heal, so it was a great teaching experience.
And then what happened as January approached?
Well, I applied to seminary, and within a matter of a few weeks, received a rejection letter, which also was devastating to me because in that era, if you could fog up a mirror, you could get accepted to seminary. I mean, they were desperate for students. So I spoke to my wife, and I said, I'm really concerned. I feel like God is leading me to start a church. And she looked at me with her big brown eyes, and she said, I want you to hear me, because she said, I love you with all my heart. And I'll make sure that you get the best psychiatric care available in this town.
Oh, no.
But you have lost your mind. And so I said, would you just do me this favor? Before you call the psychiatrist, would you just pray with me about this for a few days and see if God speaks to your heart? And by the end of that week, I came home from work, and I said, why are you crying? And she said, God wants us to start a church. And I said, I know. And she said, I'm terrified by that process. And I said, well, so am I. But I said, if God's leading us in that direction, we have to follow. And she said, I agree. So I'm willing, whatever God wants us to do, we'll do. So that's how really Grace Baptist Church came to be in our minds.
And then how did you finally start the church?
5 different friends of ours approached us individually and said, we don't know exactly what your plans are, but we want you to know that God's really given us a burden to pray for you in your new venture. And so if we can help you in any way, just let us know how we can pray. And so we felt like we didn't want to advertise what we were doing. We didn't want to create any division or conflict in our existing church. We love that church, and love that pastor, and love those people. But we felt like we needed to contact those 5 friends and let them know to please pray for wisdom for us, because we didn't really know what it meant to start a church. And so we made those 5 phone calls to them. And in every case, they said, we knew that. We're supposed to be a part of that, but we couldn't tell you. You had to figure that out on your own. And so those people became the charter members of Grace Baptist Church. And so I was at work one day, and my wife called and said, can you come home for lunch? And I said, I can. And she said, well, rather than come home, would you meet me at this address? And she gave me a street address. And so I went there, and she was there with a realtor. She had discovered a vacant church facility. It actually was 2 double-wide trailers bolted together. So we walked in, and it was almost like you could hear the angels sing. We just felt like we were supposed to have this property. So she said, I think you and I need to lease this building. I said, we don't even have a church. She said, I think we should lease this building. So we contacted those same friends, and we had a work day and got things cleaned up and spruced up. And we had our first worship service there on a Wednesday night, the middle of December in 1990. And it was glorious. It was fascinating. One of those friends was a great vocalist. He was a very good singer, but did not really play any musical instruments. And so for that first service, we had a little hand-painted sign in the front, Grace Baptist Church. And we had 2 visiting families that came just to see what was going on for our first service. So when I stood up, I said, we're going to have church tonight, and we don't know a lot about that. And we don't have anybody to play the piano, but we're going to sing a cappella. And a hand raised in the back, and it was a lady, the visitor. And she said, I play the piano. And there was a piano sitting in the front. So I said, would you come and play for us? And so God even provided for our music for that first service, and we had a great time.